Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Grigoris. We are literally just starting this second now, so good to have you with us and welcome everybody. Nice to have everybody on board. I see there are three now who are here from the additional students who were added to the group. What I'm going to be going through tonight is essentially a repeat of what I covered in the last Collab session we had this time last week, and just to recap on that stuff and to allow for any questions you might have. Before I kick off, are there any questions from any of you at this stage? Just so I know if you've got any issues that are troubling you, specific things. If you want to just unmute and chat or type in the text box, either way is fine. Any specific issues or questions before I run through the content of the first part of the assignment again? Okay. In that case, yeah, I am recording. The recordings I see, what's happened is the OneDrive has an expiry date on, I don't know if it's all files or just large files and videos and recordings. There's obviously capacity issues. And because of that, I'm actually going to switch over to using YouTube and a kind of private YouTube channel. So I will share a link to the relevant YouTube playlist that will contain all the videos in. So I will upload stuff to YouTube. It will be private videos in the sense that only people with links should be able to connect to that. So it'll make life a little bit easier. Maurice, welcome. Good to have you on board. Let me just see there. Good. That's another one who's from the second group or the additional group. Okay, so as I said, I just want to run through probably a little more quickly, and then as we go through, if there are questions, please feel free to interrupt to ask any questions or make any comments that you want to as we go through this stuff again a second time. Just a recap of the overall structure. There are ICE tasks with 10% of your mark, and I've still got to put those together. And I'm kind of been waiting on the VC Learn platform to be operational to do that. So don't worry about due dates for that. The ICE tasks will contribute to your overall learning, and they are not onerous tasks. The ICE tasks I set are pretty short and simple. Certainly most of them are. Then there's POE task 1. Now you will notice the date on this slide now has 29 March crossed out. I say that tentatively. We are expecting to get a new PAS document program assessment schedule sent out on Friday, so day after tomorrow. And we have had a very strong indication that the due dates will be shifted, but and I'm not promising that all the due dates will be shifted, but it is very likely that the first date of 29 March will be shifted back by a week or two, possibly 3 weeks. Yeah, I would imagine there will be great joy to hear that. It is as a result of the platform not being up and running, and also the fact that late registrations are still rolling in. So they are actually, from what I've been told, allowing late registrations up until the end of the month. So to make an assignment or a part of an assignment due on a day before students are, even onto the system could be a problem. So there are, as far as I know, they're going to be adjusting things. Please don't take this as an absolute promise. We have not had official word sent out. I believe there is a letter that was sent out to students saying that there would be a shift and that there's an updated assessment schedule that will be published on Friday. So we await that and see what happens. So yeah, let's wait and see. The minute I get absolute confirmation of that, I will send word out via email and so on. I also got a note today that got sent out to all the online tutors and to all staff to say that VC Learn seems to be coming on track and a lot of modules are now available. I've just checked, and as far as I can see, ours is not yet up and running, and we're still waiting for word on that. So I check on a daily 2 or 3 times a day to see if ours is up and running yet. It's not yet. So hence the continued communication via WhatsApp and email. But yeah, just keep your ears to the ground in relation to that. And as I said, as far as due dates are concerned, the minute I get absolute confirmation of something, I will let everybody know around that. It will make life quite a bit easier. Although if they don't move the subsequent dates, particularly the middle one, it might lead to a little bit of a squash. But we will, I will start providing input on that sooner rather than later. So don't panic on that count. So that's, and I've been through the other stuff before. Oh, just to highlight, very importantly, this time for assignments that are due, the due date for assignments is now 9 p.m. In previous years, it was 11:30 p.m. or 23:30. It is now 2100 9 p.m. So the system will lock you out, or it'll log your submission as late if you're after 9 p.m. in the evening. So due dates are 9 p.m. Again, if you've got any comments or questions, just shout as we go through stuff. Okay, make sure you regularly check your VC address. That's the address you guys, your Varsity College email address, your student email address. And I would recommend, as I've said 100 times before, put an auto forward on that so it sends automatically to your Gmail or an address you regularly use. The assignment, it's all based on a chosen scenario from the 3 that are given. So you're given 3, the Information Inside College Expansion, which is a building and construction project, Project Management South Africa Conference, the banquet dinner for that, which is more of an event than a project, or so it's you know, it overlaps a bit with event management, but it is a project, and then you could choose your own project, provided it's approved by me. So if you want to run with your own project, please get clearance from me prior to running ahead with that. And also just to note, for your option 3, you may not use a project from previous assignments if you are a repeating student or you've done some form of project management course with Varsity College. You need to do either one of the given projects from this assignment scenario, these assignment scenarios that you're given, or choose your own different project. So please be very clear on that. So you have to choose one, and you work with that one all the way through your assignment. I still have students each year who submit section 1 of the assignment based on a chosen scenario. Section 2 they submit based on the same scenario, and then section 3 is they then end up submitting some randomly different project. Now, my theory around that, my gut feel is that these are students who left it to the very last minute, realized they didn't they didn't have the time to do the work for the last section of the assignment, and so they just simply copied and pasted from some other project that they had, and or some other project that they nicked from somebody else and submitted that. So it's got to be the same project as we go through the process. All 3 submissions must be the same. Sorry, I just want to make a note here of who's here. Sorry about this. I'm just trying to get that sorted. So, great. Okay, sorry. So read the scenarios very carefully. Make sure you work through them carefully, and the questions, the assignments. In fact, it's relatively easy to get pretty decent marks in this course if you simply read the questions carefully and read the marking rubrics carefully. It's not difficult to get decent marks. In terms of the scenarios that you're given, the Information Inside College Expansion Project, which is construction project, here you've got a budget of 5 million, 11 months to do the project in, and a minimum of 5 people. And then there's a whole lot of other additional information that they give you about the spec of the building, how many classrooms, labs, etc. Project Management South Africa banquet, there's a budget of just shy of R1 million for that, 6 months to do it in, and a minimum of 5 people on your team. And then your own project, they're saying a maximum budget of R1 million, 6 months to do it in, and 5 people. So minimum of 5 project members on that project. Again, with the last thing of your own project, please make sure if you are choosing your own project, check it with me first, please. Make sure you cross-check it with me. So the assignment then, the questions that we go through, the first task, which is due, it was meant to be due next week, but it's now probably going to be pushed back, is worth 25%. There's a question on complexity for 24 marks, project selection for 6 marks, project phases for 20 marks, a team charter for 20 marks, and a project charter for 30 marks. Okay, and I'll come back to this in more detail now. Task 2, which will be due in May, due later than is currently indicated, is worth 30% of your mark. And this for me is where the bulk of your work needs to happen. This is the real heart of project management and project planning, is answering these questions. You must do the work breakdown structure carefully and properly. That's important. And I put a lot of weight on that as a building block for your project plan. If you don't do your WBS properly, nothing else is going to really unpack well. Your project budget for 15 marks, that's itemizing some of the costs attached to the project. Your Gantt chart, again, is worth 50 marks out of these 100 marks for part 2. And it is also a very significant part of your project. Now, and then you also do need to do a network diagram and critical path analysis for 15 marks. Now, all of these things, the work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart, the network diagram, critical path, I will take us through those in more detail, closer to the time, either in the next few weeks, depending on due dates, or if the second due date is also pushed back, then I will go through these in more detail after section 1 has been submitted. So I will give you some guidance on these questions in this sort of collab format. So don't panic. In the meantime, I would suggest, if you've got a lot of your work out the way for the first section of the assignment, what's due first, if you've got a lot of that work out the way, then already get started on investigating and looking at ways of putting together a WBS, work breakdown structure, and your network diagram and the like. And then the final task, which will be due in June, I think it is. The main part of this, and I mentioned this last week, is a risk register. What I mentioned last week is I feel they've kind of overdone things here. There's just kind of too many marks, too much weight attached to this one question, and that actually works in your favor. It's not a difficult exercise. It just requires a bit of work to do. It's not difficult or complicated work, but you just a decent risk. Hi. Sorry, I lost connection there for a while. Hopefully you can hear me all right. There is a bit of a storm and rain happening in my part of the world, so it might affect my connection, but hopefully I'm back on track. We're still recording and you can still see everything all right. Great, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. Yeah, the part 2 of your last task, which, as I said, is due in June, is resubmission of tasks 1 and 2 with some corrections and feedback. I'll tell you more about that closer to the time, but it's worth very few marks. And what I'm trying to emphasize is don't fret about that and don't spend hours and hours on that. It's not worth it for the marks that are there. And likewise, your ICE task discussion and your reflection report, they are together adding up to 25 marks here. And you do obviously count. If you're aiming to get to do really well in the course, every mark does count. But in terms of pass and fail, it's not going to make a significant difference. And bearing in mind, those 25 marks actually get divided essentially by 3, because this task, well, it's weighted at 35%, so it's not quite divided by 3. But you hear what I'm saying. So actually, out of your final 100 marks, these 25 marks are probably only going to be worth about 8 out of 100. So if you get for these 3 questions, and I'm just jumping ahead a little bit here, but if you get for these 3 questions, let's say you get an average of 70% for those versus 50% for those, that's a difference of 20% of 8 marks out of your total 100. It's not going to be a major train smash. So just do the maths in terms of where are the marks, where can you get most marks for what you need to. Okay. So coming now to just a recap again of task 1. What I'm saying is, it says read through and research each of the project options below. And on questions, so assess the project complexity. Let me try that again. My pad is a little bit crooked here. Assess the project complexity by evaluating the project attributes using any 6 criteria from the list below. So any 6. So what you have to do is choose any 6 of these 9 elements. Let me just check. Sorry, let me just check something here. Yeah, everything's on track. So you are not needing to do. Sorry, it's just jumped ahead here. I look at risk of the various of the 3 different project scenarios, cost elements, tools required, stakeholders, duration, how many is that so far, and end product required. So you choose 6 that you're comfortable with discussing and comparing the different projects, and then having looked at those projects and chosen your 6 attributes of complexity, you must then conduct a project complexity evaluation based on any 2 of the 3 projects. Obviously, one of those 2 will be the project you choose, because the next question says, out of your complexity evaluation, tell us which project you have selected. Okay, so at least one of these 2 projects will be the one that you end up choosing. Okay, so you mustn't do a complexity analysis for the 2 given scenarios and then do the rest of the project on your own scenario as you are given the option for. So your complexity analysis must cover at least one of the, your project must fall into these 2 that are going to be assessed. So your evaluations must show an understanding of the level of complexity, both qualitative and quantitative in nature, and refer to the marking rubric provided. Now, here's the kind of killer thing in this section. Complexity is not specifically covered in the textbook, and I have provided, I think I sent it out this morning, and it's available. I'll go through it on the slide quickly later. I provided a table as a guideline for you to possibly use. Would you just excuse me for 1 second? I just want to have a look at my network connection. Just okay, sorry about the delay. I don't know if it's the rain or the weather that's affecting. I'm not on fiber, on cable. I'm on basically a radio small satellite dish connection to my service provider, and we sometimes get dips in the signal. But I'm hoping you guys are hearing me all right and that we can continue. So we are looking at continuity, and I will thanks Shanice, thanks for the feedback. Now here's this table that I shared. It looks very complicated. You would choose, and let me just here choose the color of my pen. You would choose 6 of these elements. As they say, choose any 6 of what's below here. Okay. And just to give you some guidance, and this is a broad guideline, you do not have to follow this this table rigidly, but it's to give you an indication or some guidance as to the way you might go about looking at project complexity. So the criteria that are given in the rubric is the end product required, and I've simply given some guidance on how you might break that down. A low complexity project would be a simple end product. It's got a single function or purpose, a single outcome related to that. Medium complexity might be the end product has 2 or 3 functions or purposes or outcomes, and high complexity would be many purposes, outcomes. And the example I gave, a shopping mall or a casino that's got a theater and cinemas and a shopping mall and a hotel and a whole bunch of other stuff would be a fairly high complexity project. Whereas a low complexity project in construction sector would be just building a simple house. It's a simple single function, single purpose thing. So that would be comparison. Now, life cycle size for cost refers to basically what's the budget of your project. And I'm suggesting, based on the scenarios we're given, low complexity would be less than $1 million, medium might be 1 to 5, and something that's complex might be greater than 5 million rand there. Okay, sorry, I just want to check the comments and make sure all's good there. Okay, so that's cost. Then in the same way, duration would be how long is this project going to take? And complex in the context of these scenarios that we've given, I've broken it down into less than 3 months, 3 to 6, and greater than 6 months. It might be, in real life, you might be looking at 3 or 4 different projects and assessing them in complexity. And one of those projects is a year long, another project is 10 years long. That would be a difference in terms of complexity there. Technology readiness has to do with the project that you're doing is reliant on technology. Now, your projects are probably not too involved with technology. I'm making an assumption. You might, for the sake of the projects you're looking at and addressing, you might feel differently, and you might think technology is a complexity factor that's relevant to your projects. In my opinion, it might not be so relevant. But what you're dealing with here is technology. A low complexity technology would be technology that's proven and mature. It's been around for a long time. It's safe and stable, and everyone knows how to run it and work with it. Medium complexity might be technology that's relatively new and not well tested, and high complexity might involve a project with technology that's untested, not yet available, and you run the risk of getting something that's going to be very complex and difficult to implement. So that's technology readiness. Risk, and this might overlap with your last section of your submission in 3 or 4 months' time, or 3 months' time, is looking at risk. The project might be low non-impact risk. A risk with medium impact, and high complexity would be a project that has risk that if something goes wrong, it's a high cost and a high impact to the organization. That overlaps a little bit with visibility, the next one down here, and also the stakeholders. Visibility has to do with how widely visible, kind of what reputational damage might happen, or how it's not so much reputation in the risk sense, but complexity. In terms of complexity, the project is visible only to staff within your department. It's not that other departments are unaware of it or can't see what's going on, but it's primarily your own internal departmental staff that are focusing on this project, and it's within their scope and not really within the scope of others. A medium complexity might be where it's cuts across the whole organization, and a high complexity project in terms of visibility might be a project that's involves and is visible to the general public, as it were, or to a wider range of organizations. Tools required, I've just said few and simple, some tools of medium complexity, and many tools, complicated use of those tools. That might overlap a little bit with technology to some extent. Stakeholders, how many stakeholders, or who are the stakeholders involved in your project? So internal team members only. This has to do, it overlaps a little bit with visibility here. Internal team members, cross-organizational, or high complexity would be involving many external stakeholders. Shanice, I'll come back to you on that. Let me just wrap this up. And authorization bias, again, it's the internal department approving or determining the project internal to the organization. And here it might be a project that involves external clients. Now, I'm giving you this table as, and this is coming to Shanice's question, if we do a table like this, must we give examples so it makes more sense? I'm giving you this table as a guideline to the criteria you can use. I am not suggesting that you use this table in this format for your answer to this question. What you need to do is choose 6 of these criteria. So let me just you choose 6 of these criteria, and you evaluate 2 projects. Any 2 of the 3 projects, okay? So any 2 of the 3 projects, and you compare them in terms of your 6 chosen criteria here that you would choose. Now, what you need to do really is, I would not, I'm happy for you to not put it in a table format. I feel it's better as a textual description where you write out, looking at this project, we feel it's a complex project in terms of its cost, in terms of its, and so on. You can put it in table format, but there needs to be quite a lot of content in that table. You mustn't just tick the relevant box and say, project A, just project A falls into here and falls into here and falls into here, and project B is there, and there, and so on. That would not be sufficient. You need to give some discussion around your analysis of each project in terms of this complexity. There's quite a few marks attached to this question, and it lays the groundwork for choosing or selecting your project and moving forward with that project. Cool. Any other questions around this? Thanks, Shanice. That's a great question. Okay, then let's move forward. Unach, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name. But for question 1, you're asking of part 1, do we have to think out what option 3 would be, even if we are not going to choose it and then compare it? No. Let me just go back to this. Let me go back here. You must do an evaluation, and you might have come into the room at this point, but you need to do a project complexity evaluation based on any 2 of the 3 projects. So you can choose, let's come back to here. You could choose, say, this project and this project and compare them in terms of complexity and do a complexity evaluation. And then you say, based on that, I'm going to choose this project, okay, and I'm going to move forward with project 2. Or you could compare this project to your own project and say, based on that, I'm going to move forward with my own project. The third option is to compare the conference banquet to your own project, and based on that, you're going to move forward with that one, for example. What I said earlier is, provided that the complexity evaluation that you do in question 1 of part 1 includes the project you are going to move forward with, whichever one it might be. So don't do, cool. So yeah, just to confirm one more time, don't do a complexity evaluation looking at this scenario and this scenario, and then say, for the rest of my assignment, I'm going to do my own project. That's not going to make sense. Your complexity evaluation must lead to you selecting the project you're going to move forward with for the rest of your submission. Okay, so let's come back to here. So you choose any 6 criteria, and you, using those 6 criteria, you evaluate any 2 of the 3 scenarios, provided one of those 2 is the project you're going to move forward with. So that's the table. Then coming to that selection question, based on your evaluation in question 111 above, state the project you are going to choose to continue with for the rest of the parts and provide the reasoning. Don't just say, I'm choosing project 2, the banquet. Say why. And note the reason for your choice should be argued based on the conclusion of the complexity evaluation and show some understanding of the project selection process. Now you can read through, there's a couple of pages around project selection, but this question is worth just 6 marks, and those 6 marks are discounted down to 25% of your overall final course mark. So again, just look at your mark weighting on that. Okay, so that's question 1.1.2. Then 1.1.3, which is for 20 marks here, using, sorry, let me just come back to this question here. And Shanice's question, I did answer it to some extent, but there's something else that's nagging me, Shanice, and I just want to add this. You ask, if we do a table like this, must we give examples so it makes more sense? You need to base this discussion around complexity on 2 of those 3 scenarios. So you must talk through those scenarios. So in other words, the 2 scenarios you choose will be your examples that you give in terms of complexity. So you say the banquet project is not that complex in the sense that it has to be done in a short time span and has a fairly small budget. And we've done this sort of project many times before, so for us it would be a low risk project and therefore low complexity. However, The building construction project is a much larger project in terms of budget and time. It's not a project we in our company have done before, and for us it would be highly complex for these reasons. Okay, now I'm making that up as I'm talking, but you get the point I'm trying to make, is that you are using these project scenarios as a basis for your discussion, and you are discussing those scenarios in terms of their relative complexities. Okay, so that's important. So coming now to this question. Great, Shanice, good. For 20 marks, using examples and the project option you have selected above, explain what each of the phases below will mean: initiation phase, planning phase, execution phase, project closing phase, and what nags me a bit is monitoring and controlling, which for me isn't a separate phase, it's something that overlaps all the others. So monitoring and control sits over across the board as far as the other phases are concerned, but you need to discuss it as a category in its own right. And what does it mean to monitor and control a project, and using examples as well as the project option you have chosen. So you might give a bit of theory, say project initiation is when projects are at idea phase or concept stage. You're thinking about the possibility and feasibility of the project, and in the context of the construction project, the expansion project, it would involve the college assessing and determining whether it's worthwhile expanding the college, is it worthwhile moving forward with it, and doing initial so on. So that would be, you know, what are the things that you do in initiating a project? Okay, so that's the project phases, and it's just as a highlight at the bottom, see pages 16 to 18 of the textbook, and also do some basic internet research and write this in your own words. Now, project phases, there's plenty of, you know, tons and tons of information and websites on this. If you do a Google search on project management phases of projects, you will get a million websites to visit. You only have to choose, you know, just read 2 or 3 of them, and don't you just skim read them. You don't even have to go into much detail in looking at that, but it'll give you a bit of a fuller understanding of the phasing of projects and what goes into each of those phases. But project management, there's an immense amount of information available, and relatively simple information available online in relation to all of these questions. Okay. And I'm prepared to bet there's probably 100 YouTube videos for each of these sections that we're discussing. You know, and you would get various people from all over the world explaining what project phases is, what project network diagram is, what a critical path analysis is. You know, what I'm saying is YouTube and Google and the internet are your friends in this instance. And then coming to the second part of this, there's a team charter to discuss. Now, I've given some corrections here. So besides the project charter that is developed as part of the undertaking of a project, the team charter is also an important document. And the following items are in part related to the contents and development of the team charter. This is for 20 marks. So it says using your chosen project again. So using your project as the example and unpacking that project, explaining that project. Explain the following items' purpose, and then provide the content that would be part of that section. Now, this part is very important. You must write the team charter, these sections of the team charter. You must actually write the charter, those sections of them, for your project, okay? In addition to giving a brief explanation of the stuff. So you explain the purpose of these sections, and then you actually give those sections as the team charter for your project. So just to highlight, the first part says composition. It actually says positioning in the assignment, but positioning is not a thing. I don't know where they got that word from. I don't think they proofread this very carefully. So talk about the composition of your team. What are the values of the team? What is the mission statement of the team? In other words, what is its purpose, and links to the purpose of the project itself. And then an operations statement. How will the project operate on a daily basis in terms of kind of the logistics of the project? Meeting times, contents of meetings, who should do what, admin, running of the project, and so on. So it's not the project work itself. It's more how is the project going to be managed operationally. Any questions around this question 2.2.1? Or sorry, 2.1. And then the second part of this, well, no, sorry, the subsequent or last question is the project charter. Develop a project charter for your project. This is described on page 81 in detail. It's clearly also spelled out in the mark allocation table or the rubric given on page 29 to 31 of the assignment. So all the details there. And what you have to do is you must do the charter. Now, a charter is a fairly short, simple document. It doesn't need to be complicated and long. It's probably a couple of pages at most. And you need to do the charter for your project. So I'm less interested, in fact, there's no need to give theory around that and to say, well, this is what each part of the charter is, etc. You actually write the project charter for your scenario. Now, in a subsequent session, I will discuss referencing in more detail and how to reference and do your table of reference, list of references, or bibliography, and in-text referencing. I will give some more input on that, on the assumption that due date is not going to be next week, the 29th, but is going to be another week or two later. Okay, that kind of wraps it up for me. Are there any other questions from anyone? Okay, Lana, great. If I'm going to stay online for another couple of minutes if you do want to ask questions. But if you're happy with what I've covered, and my apologies for it being pretty much a simple repeat of last week, but I wanted to give everyone else, because there were some people who didn't know from the late entries into the group, if I can put you like that. There were some late entries who weren't aware of last week's Collab. I wanted to give everyone a chance to be on board again. So from my side, if you're done, you're welcome to sign off and leave. You can sign out, keep in touch on WhatsApp and email if you've got any queries, but you're free to leave. Yeah, but I'll stay online for a couple more minutes if any of you do want to ask further questions. So thanks, guys, from my side. Have a good evening. Keep up the hard work, and thanks for attending. It's been good to have you here.